To see you all here. Welcome to Hudson County Community College. I'm Chris Reber, president of the college, and on behalf of our entire college community, it's a great pleasure and honor to welcome all of you. Welcome to Citizens Bank, Citizens Philanthropic Foundation. We thank Bruce Van Saun and Caitlyn Brazill, Vivian Cox-Fraser, our partner Stanley Taylor. We're partnered with Europe, New York, New Jersey. And of course, George, thank you for being a moderator. I want to do a shout out to our wonderful colleague, friend, and partner, Michelle Richardson, who's executive director of the Hudson County Economic Development Corporation. She's on the Port Authority Board, but more important, she's a member of the HCCC Foundation. And Michelle, I thank you. I think you originally suggested that this be the venue for this meeting, and we really appreciate that. I wanted to say just a few words about Hudson County Community College as it relates to what you're going to be talking about today. For those of you not familiar with this college, it is inspirational. It is, I would say, a top-tier community college in the nation. It's been receiving accolades and lots of honors and awards and recognition for cutting-edge work. We serve 18,000 students per year, 12,000 credits, 6,000 non-credit. We serve students who come from an incredibly rich, diverse backgrounds. We're 87% non-white. We are an Hispanic-serving institution. The vast majority of our students are the first in their families to attend higher education. They come, our greatest point of pride is also our greatest challenge, because our students come to us with phenomenal life barriers that they're navigating as they attempt to literally achieve the American dream. It's not lost on us that we see the Statue of Liberty from our campus. Our students come from the lowest family incomes of the 18 community colleges in New Jersey. A third of our students come enrolled in our English as a Second Language program. Many students come here not speaking English as they begin their college careers. Lots of students that begin in academic foundations, English and math. Temple University surveyed our students twice over the last few years, and 2/3 to 3/4 indicated that in the last year they have suffered from housing insecurity, food insecurity, and/or homelessness. That's the backdrop. Our students come here. I've been in higher education for 42 years in 2- and 4-year institutions, all very good places. I've never been so inspired as I am by the stories of our students here. They are tremendously grateful for the opportunity to pursue an educational credential and achieve transformational, life-changing dreams. And when our students complete, they go on, it's not uncommon for them to go to Ivy League institutions, Research One universities. They have tremendous success in terms of gainful employment. And watching that happen is the honor of, I think, everyone's life who works in this really transformational institution. So our two overarching priorities at Hudson County Community College are student success, using data and best practice to remove barriers and to partner with students and get them to the finish line, whether that's transfer to a 4-year institution or gainful employment. And diversity, equity, and inclusion, leveraging our rich diversity to reach higher levels of excellence as an institution, while also addressing historic equity gaps and building a more inclusive, caring, respectful community. These priorities are totally intertwined, and the entire college community is involved. These priorities have galvanized our entire college community. So a major part of our vision for the future is in the workforce development area. I want to thank my colleague Lori Margolin, who's Associate Vice President for Workforce Development and Continuing Education, who's in the back. She is leading really nationally distinctive work in the non-credit and workforce space, partnering with institutions to create credentials, pathways that are distinctive and, I think, best practice. And I often refer to our workforce development efforts as the entrepreneurial engine of the college. We're working assiduously on developing industry credentials in healthcare, advanced manufacturing, finance, technology, supply chain, and others. building credentials that move students from non-credit short-term certificates that meet industry-recognized standards into credit-bearing pathways. I want to end with just mention of a project that has gained us national recognition very recently. It's called our Gateway to Innovation program. This program was named a top 10 best practice program by the Bellwether College Consortium, which is housed at the University of Texas and has independent judges. And it won the Innovation of the Year award last year. It's a comprehensive workforce initiative designed to address unprecedented systemic challenges to the workforce ecosystem that were exacerbated by the pandemic. To date, this work, which is guided by an industrial advisory board, has resulted in more than 2,000 community members having the opportunity to be screened and referred for benefits, 400 alumni who've been engaged in career services, 150 job placements, many of those students earning $20 an hour or more with full benefits, and those students that have become employed as a result of new short-term credentials that have been developed that lead to family-sustaining wages, 97% retention rate to date. So we are very grateful that JP Morgan Chase has invested $1 million in this project, and it's continuing to grow and become integrated into all we do in the credit space. And that's more than you wanted to hear from me today, but I just want to say we are so happy to have you here. Citizens, it's wonderful to have you join our community, and we salute your focus on helping address workforce needs and economic development here in our community that we're so proud of. So thank you all. Have a great day, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate those comments, and thank you for hosting us today here. And also congratulations on what sounds like a pretty compelling and appealing program. I really enjoyed your remarks until you mentioned JP Morgan putting $1 million into the program, but only kidding. Hey, good morning. My name's Dominic Kama. I am the president of the New York, New Jersey, or New York Metro, New Jersey market for Citizens. And I'm the former president and chief operating officer of Investors Bank. Investors Bank was the bank that Citizens acquired just about a year ago in order to gain partial entry into New York and New Jersey. That was a combination of a transaction they did with HSBC. You know, when we started to negotiate with and talk to Bruce and his team about joining forces and merging with them, one of the things that became pretty obvious to us was that we were dealing with people who believed in or had the same culture as we did at Investors Bank. And, you know, when I think about my career at Investors Bank, one of the things that I'm most proud of is what our philanthropic activities were and our commitment to the communities that we served throughout New York and New Jersey. And so dealing with the Citizens team and now being part of the Citizens team just emphasizes to me, and today is actually evidence of the commitment that Citizens has in staying involved and believing in the concept of you can do good and do well at the same time. So I won't keep you up. I won't keep you any longer. Before I introduce my colleague, Rebecca, my business partner here in the New York, New Jersey market, I just want to once again thank you for the time that you took to be with us today, and have a great conference today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dom. Sorry. Thank you, Dom. It's a pleasure to be here with everybody today. Today really is all about connectivity and collaboration. As the region exec for the New York City metro market, I have the fortunate opportunity to see all of the amazing activity and support that we provide to all of those that we serve on a daily basis. Events like this give us an opportunity to create even greater connectivity to our clients across all sectors. And it also offers us an opportunity to showcase all that we can do together. Citizens has a longstanding commitment to community, and we take that role very seriously, just as Dom had mentioned. Connection and collaboration are vital to the success of workforce development, and today's conversation is a great example of how we all need to come together to solve for the workforce challenges right here in New Jersey. It is my pleasure to welcome and introduce Citizens Chairman and CEO Bruce Van Saun today, who's been a champion of driving tangible solutions to further workforce development. He will share some insights on our commitment to work in this space and announce funding for the organizations that you will hear from today. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Bruce Van Saun.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Dom. And also thank you, Chris, for going over your program and all the good that you're doing here and serving North Jersey. So I'm really honored to take part of this conversation today. We've done a series of these in different cities that we serve at Citizens Bank, where we view ourselves as a convener because banks obviously serve a broad array of industries. We see kind of what some of the challenges are for companies, and the big one has been talent and securing talent with the right skill set to further the growth in their businesses. And then we also, I think, work with community partners to try to provide opportunities for folks who want to advance on the economic ladder and get the right skills, to get good jobs, to have a good life. And so we can hopefully discuss some of that today about how we can all work together in coordinated fashion to really get people moving in the right direction. So that'll be the focus of the conversation today. You know, there's a lot of good happening in Hudson County. There's good happening across New Jersey. We are reasonably new to this area. Dom gave the history, but we have a bank that spans the Northeast in our core footprint out through the Mid-Atlantic and out to the upper Midwest in Ohio and Michigan. We had what we referred to as the hole in the donut. We didn't have a physical presence here in the New York metro region. So we did an acquisition of HSBC's East Coast branches, which put us in the New York area. We then combined that with Investors Bank, which gave us a very solid North Jersey and amplified the New York presence. The net result of that is that we have 200 branches in the greater New York area. We gained another 800,000 or so customers. And we have a great opportunity to bring the kind of banking that's been successful in the other big cities that we serve here to New York. So we're really excited about all of that. But one of the hallmarks for us is that we really focus on being a good community partner and making the communities better places to live, work, and play in. And so to do that, you know, especially when we're new into a city and a region, we have to listen first. And so it's events like these that help us to hear what the needs are, and so we can form our strategies to have the most impact. I personally am I've lived my whole life basically in New Jersey, a few trips for work here or there, but I was born and raised in New Jersey, and my family are early Dutch settlers who settled in the early 1700s. So I live just up the road in Bergen County still, and so this is personal for me, is the opportunity to actually build a great business in New Jersey and give back to the community and help to make New Jersey a better place is really exciting for me personally. So let me shift a little bit to some of my prepared remarks here. But, you know, when we expanded into New York City last year with HSBC, we had an opportunity to meet with many community and business leaders to learn about pressing issues and challenges and how best the private, the public, nonprofit, and educational sectors can come together to help our communities thrive. We plan to do the same thing here today. We've got many local partners and different parties who bring unique expertise. So hopefully this will amount to a very productive and interesting dialogue today. We know that having a good job is more than just about collecting a paycheck. So the programs that we support are both in the community and at the bank focus on enhancing people's ability to meet their needs, to pursue their goals, and to advance their careers. Without question, the last few years have been very challenging. We're facing ongoing uncertainty about inflation, about interest rates, geopolitical conflict. But it's very clear that we have to make the right investments and the right partnerships to position our communities to thrive today and in the future in spite of those many challenges. There's really an urgent need, given the growing divide between the skills demand and skills availability in technology and telecommunications in particular. And that is a pattern that's been exacerbated by the pandemic. We believe that equitable access to job training and development programs is essential to the economic viability of communities and neighborhoods. Access to jobs training is also critical for creating inclusive workplaces. We recognize that career support has not been accessible to all members of our communities. After experiencing record high unemployment rates throughout the early years of the pandemic, New Jersey has recovered more quickly than much of the Northeast. New Jersey's current unemployment rate sits at 3.4%, which is about the same as the overall rate in the country. And it's actually, we're number 25, I think, so right at the midpoint of the unemployment rate amongst the states. In recent months, the state's total workforce returns to its pre-pandemic levels for the first time since March 2020. So there's roughly 4.8 million people employed in New Jersey. However, the labor force participation rate remains slightly lower than it had been at the start of 2020. So some folks have chosen to opt out of full-time working. Despite this mostly good news, the number of job openings in New Jersey continues to increase. In January, it was up by 280,000. It's the most since June 2022, and hiring remains extremely difficult for most employers. At Citizens, we face the same issues as any other employer, and we're focused on doing the work necessary to make sure that we have the right qualified people to serve our customers today and to also be in position to be successful in the future. Which brings us to why we're here today. Historically, Citizens has been deeply committed to supporting customers, colleagues, communities where we live, work, and play. We're guided by our credo, which calls for us to perform our best each and every day so that those we serve can reach their potential, both today and over the longer term. In our view, we can only thrive when our communities thrive. And to that end, we're partnering with organizations across the footprint that support low-income individuals by providing the tools they need to compete for jobs that provide the foundation for long-term economic security. We've also doubled down on our commitment to accelerate the pathway to homeownership. This is often linked with the needs around employment, but we're equipping individuals with the essential building blocks for economic confidence, financial security, and long-term stability where they need it most. We focused on connecting people to organizations that will help provide much-needed job training so that they have a pathway to companies that are looking for workers. And we know that we're going to be more than a bank here in New Jersey. We're first and foremost citizens together with common purpose. So with that background, let me proceed to make a few brief announcements regarding our support, our financial support for workforce development. So first off, Citizens will provide $50,000 to Per Scholas, benefiting the Per Scholas Alumni Upskilling Program, a new investment focused on providing continued support to program alumni to help them remain on a successful path and further advance in their careers in rapidly evolving tech world. Second, I'd like to announce that Citizens will be providing $100,000 to the Urban League of Essex County to support the Clean Energy Job Program, which is a partnership with PSE&G to train and place individuals in clean energy jobs. Certainly something more important for the future. Third, I'm pleased to announce that Citizens will provide $50,000 to one of our terrific partners, Europe, New Jersey, to support their skills-based job training pathway program. This will provide much-needed IT job training and software development, as well as business operations, sales, and customer support skills. This is part of Citizens' larger commitment of $150,000 to Europe, which expands our program support into both New Jersey and Philadelphia. Thank you to Morris Applewhite, National Head of Corporate Engagement for Europe, and John Galante, Managing Director for Financial Services, for both being here today. Lastly, I'm honored to announce a $1.25 million grant to LISC from the Citizens Charitable Foundation. $140,000 of that is dedicated to Greater Newark. This funding will be used to fuel digital inclusion in historically marginalized communities, helping residents build the skills that they need to compete for jobs. The $1.25 million grant builds on a pilot program also supported by Citizens that tested approaches to bridging the digital skills gap through LISC Financial Opportunity Centers. It will help launch and expand digital services that prepare people for growth industries, including the information technology field. I'm so pleased that Denise Scott, the president of LISC, is here with us today. Denise. There you are. Before I close, I just want to say I'm grateful to be joined here today with the distinguished panelists that we're going to join in a deeper conversation on all these issues and talk about some of the collective work that we're doing on these topics. And it's my hope that we come out of the conversation with a perspective on how best we can further align and work together to meet the accelerated workforce needs of both today and in the future. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to George Cruz, the Executive Director of LISC Greater Newark, who will lead us in this discussion. George?
Thank you, Bruce. I'm going to be lazy and stay seated here. So, no, that's all right. Thank you to all of you for joining us here today. It's great to see a number of familiar faces and some new faces, and mostly happy faces. Having to deal with Pulaski Skyway and Tunnelly Avenue and wonderful Jersey City traffic. So it's great to be with all of you today, and most of all, thank you for being you. I think that most of the folks here in the room share our values and share our thinking and our missions. So thank you for you and for the work that you all do every day. So Bruce teed up the conversation pretty well that we're just about to get into. And I think I probably speak for my colleagues here on the panel when I say thank you to Citizens, and not only for growing the support for our respective work and growing the investment into addressing an array of economic and workforce challenges, but doing it in a thoughtful way. We could have just had the usual little big check and photo op and media, right? So, but instead, Citizens being Citizens, decided to do this in this sort of convening. And as Bruce mentioned, I believe this might be the sixth sort of convening, right, over the last few years in and outside of New Jersey, to center the conversation on an array of factors affecting workforce development. And for today's convening in particular, I'm especially excited given that the focus is primarily on the impact of the nonprofit sector, specifically, in not only addressing an array of labor market challenges, but doing so in confronting some of the more complex challenges with the particularly vulnerable populations and communities that our panelists here and the organizations that they represent, that they address every day. So with that, let me allow our panelists to introduce themselves. So they'll give a brief description of who they are and the scope of their work. So when we start to the far left there with Caitlyn.
Thanks, George. Thanks, Bruce. Thank you all for being here. It's a real honor to share a stage with all of you, Vivian, Stanley. I'm Caitlyn Brazill. I am the Chief Development Officer with Scholas. We are a national nonprofit that provides immersive training for careers in technology, entirely tuition-free, to help individuals launch careers. And we work with about 850 companies across the country to provide diverse, capable, amazing talent. So really excited to be with all of you here today and grateful for your support.
Thanks, Caitlyn. Stanley Taylor, Senior Director of Partnerships, Europe, New York, New Jersey. Bruce, again, you mentioned our partnerships, and we're grateful for the work we've done in New England, and we look forward to what we're going to do here in New Jersey. Europe is also a national nonprofit, workforce development focused. We serve 18 to 29-year-olds across the country in an array of industries, finance, IT, and we are committed to continue to do the work here in New Jersey in particular to help young adults achieve their dreams, right? We want to meet young people where they are and get them to living wage roles so that they can impact their lives, the lives of their families, and the lives of their communities. So we're grateful to be here as well. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vivian Cox-Fraser. I'm President and CEO of the Urban League of Essex County, located in Newark, New Jersey. We are a local nonprofit, but we are an affiliate of the National Urban League, which has over 90 affiliates across the country. Our mission is to promote economic self-sufficiency and economic advancement for African American families and other disadvantaged minorities, and we execute our mission through program services, bridge building, and advocacy. Grateful for citizens for their support and really excited about this conversation today.
So let me just, you can hold on to that, Viv. Yes, let me just add to the organizational descriptions. Also, LISC is a national nonprofit community development financial institution, and the Greater Newark office where I sit happens to be one of 38 field offices that are currently in operation. And with our rural program, we're now serving all but one state at this point. And while we're similar to many of our fellow CDFIs and serving as a lender and an investor, we have for quite some time now decided to expand our role as an ecosystem builder, and we have established 9 distinct but very interrelated program areas of focus. So given some of our more powerful relationships with corporate and foundation partners like Citizens, have emerged as one of the more active grant makers in many of the markets that we operate. And income and wealth building happens to be one of our program areas of focus, as Bruce mentioned, in the Financial Opportunity Centers program. And we're funding over 100 financial opportunity centers in 44 markets last time I checked. And I keep looking at Denise because she knows it better than I do. And we're particularly proud out of the Greater Newark office that the Urban League of Essex County is actually one of our original financial opportunity centers, and has emerged, and no surprise given the sort of leader that Vivian has emerged as one of the model FLCs across our entire network. So that 1.25 million, even though I'll be more than happy to take the entire amount, that'll be spread across, several, a handful of markets, and be able to expand our financial opportunity center model even further. All right, so with that, let's get to the discussion at hand. So the overriding question that our panelists will do their best to respond to today, and I think we have, I'm looking at Sandy. Sandy is our taskmaster over there. I guess roughly about 50 minutes or so, right? That we're going to try to get to today is describe some of the core challenges and gaps affecting today and tomorrow's workforce, and particularly as it relates to some of our more historically marginalized communities. At the top of the conversation, you'll hear, as we go through the questions, we'll get into some of the primary challenges and gaps that we are meeting now, and we will meet going forward. But we're going to spend most of our conversation today listening and learning from our panelists here in terms of what's working. And what the hope is that we kind of stay within the sort of solutions, the solutions framework, and we leave today with a sense of what sort of practices, what sort of collection of programs and strategies that we can take back into our respective organizations, into our respective markets. And at the end of the conversation, come up with a sort of, collective call to action that we can all own, and collective being the, the operative term. So we have 8 questions that we're going to try to get through. And I should mention that after we get through the questions, and we'll do our best to get through all 8 questions, that we'll leave some time at the end for some questions. And given the, not only do we have like-minded folks here, we got some big-minded folks in the room. So I want to hear your thoughts and your ideas, any questions that you might have. And I think we have portable mics, right? If what I understand, right? Yeah. So, yeah, we'll leave about 15 minutes or so at the end of the conversation to do that. So the first question is to the entire panel. And since Vivian's holding the microphone, we'll let Vivian go first. I'll put you on the spot. Yeah, no, too late. So the first question, it's a really simple question, right, Vivian? It's shocking how quickly workforce challenges have escalated over the course of the last few years, and how fast competition for talent has increased. How significant is the workforce challenge right now?
The workforce challenge is significant not only for companies, but also in the nonprofit sector as well. We have faced challenges in terms of hiring, and then for the nonprofit sector, not having the capacity to have recruiters and things like that to source your talent. It also creates challenges around serving, some of the most complicated issues you have to deal with. You have to deal with government funding and lack of government funding around to meet those challenges. And I think COVID certainly exacerbated everything for all industry sectors, even some of our workforce partners, in being able to fill the positions that they have. So it's very significant. I think it reaches every industry. And certainly you mentioned about the low unemployment rate right now, but for African Americans, it's always double what the broader rate is, but it's still challenging in terms of, as we think about inflation and the pressures coming, that sometimes the last hired is the first fired, and as inflation goes up, then companies start to cut back, and there's certainly overall concern about how that will affect employment overall.
Emma?
Thank you. I think one of the other concerns that we face in this space is understanding how people enter the workforce, right? And so the question of awareness, as we think about young people and them figuring out how they're going to make impact for their lives and the lives of their families, right? And so how do we work with them to ensure that they are aware of all of the opportunities that actually exist? And what's the preparation that's necessary to launch into those careers? The other space that I think we need to talk about, and there was a Bain & Company report in January of 2022 that talks about the shifting of workforce and how automation, I believe the number is that automation will cause 85 million jobs to no longer exist. But on the same note, 97 million will be created. How do we upskill individuals who are changing what they're doing in their careers to ensure that they are also viable in the workforce, right? What does it mean to train individuals who have sat in a workplace 15, 20 years and their job is eliminated because of automation, and now we have to upskill those individuals to ensure that they still can be productive members within the workforce? So we need to address those issues as well.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Stanley. And actually, I had ChatGPT write my response, so that's what you'll get. No, I think that automation is really exacerbated. It was really exacerbated. It was happening, but after the pandemic, we see a rapid acceleration. We see that many companies are really refashioning the way their workforce looks. And I think particularly for entry-level talent, what's critical right now is that we create opportunities for people to enter and grow within a company to get that skill set, even if automated functions could do that role, right? And because that's the gap that we're starting to see. I do think that thinking about reskilling as part of your career has to be the way that we think about careers going forward, right? There's no longer an opportunity to think about this is a period of education and then after that is work. I think every single career pathway, and particularly those in tech that we know well, are going to require continual upskilling and reskilling. And I think it's incumbent upon training providers, institutes of higher learning, and employers to work together to ensure that we provide those supports as people grow in their careers.
Yeah, great remarks by everyone. I have the mic, so, but I'll just amplify that a little bit with our own perspective. But, the pandemic forced many companies to take a hard look at their business models, and it was clear the acceleration towards digital business models really moved up dramatically. It probably was already a trend that was taking place, but probably pulled kind of 3 years of the future into the current 3 to 5 years. And so the demand for folks with skills around digital programming, coders, software engineers, folks who have expertise in data and how to analyze and use data just exploded. And it's across all industries. And so, where do you get the supply from when all of a sudden you have a shift in demand for certain skills? A lot of the answer is you have to reach out into communities and bring people in and then start investing in them so they have the skills, so expand the supply of people with those skills. So there were many challenges with the pandemic, but there were also silver linings. And so I think this effort broadly to reach out into low and moderate income communities, bring folks in with some of our partners here to give them those skills to actually meet the needs of companies has been a real big silver lining that we've seen come out of the pandemic. And at Citizens, we probably added 600 software engineers over the last 3 years. We probably added a couple hundred data scientists and coders. And so we're making big investments in those areas. And we've brought in a lot of new folks through some of our partnerships that once they hit the ground, to your point, we have to be investing them to keep having them gain new experience, but new skills as well. So we've instituted badging programs. We run academies inside the company where folks can also, besides learning on the job, they can start to take some of this curriculum and earn badges, which certainly positions them for bigger and better jobs down the road. So I'd say that's what I would highlight.
So a similar question, but turning our attention to Hudson County, where we're sitting here in Essex County, and Jersey City, for those of us who have, and I'm looking at Michelle, because Michelle knows this probably better than most folks here, has changed fairly dramatically. And even in Essex County, West Essex is a lot different than East Essex, right, Viv? Right? And even in Newark, very different from what's happening in Midtown versus what's happening in Fairmont and some of our other similar neighborhoods. So looking at, the same sort of question, and Caitlyn, since you have the mic, you'll go first with this one. And this is a question for the full panel again, is in terms of workforce needs, what skills and needs do you see emerging right here in Essex and Hudson County? And if you want to talk about the state more broadly, you can do that as well. So Caitlyn, we get going with you first.
Sure, absolutely. Stanley, next time we're leaving the mic with you. Our focus is around tech, right? So I can really see the skill sets there. And it's interesting because we've seen at a national level layoffs over the last 3 months. But I can tell you in Essex County right now, there's about 700 companies that have about 3,200 open roles in cybersecurity, software engineering, IT support and networking, cloud engineering, and data analytics. So there is still tremendous unmet demand. I think the other thing that we see such potential is that these are really good jobs. We're talking a median wage of around $100K, strong pathways to achieve a thriving wage. What we also see, though, is that the tech sector in New Jersey remains largely white and male-led. About 83% of tech execs are white. Black and Hispanic employees at major tech companies within New Jersey make up just about 15% of the workforce. And as Women's History Month is coming to a close here, I can tell you that Black and brown women are representing less than 4% of people employed in tech roles. So we can do much better. I think when I think about our work here in Newark and Essex County specifically, I can't help but think about our specific learners, right? So I think about a guy named Herbert, who was originally from El Salvador. He was a landscaper. He was fixing forklifts, and he got laid off during the pandemic. Who was always passionate about technology, never had any professional skilling in it. Entered our cybersecurity class, which is incredibly demanding. We are talking full-time for almost 4 months. He completely applied himself. He excelled. He earned his CompTIA CYSA. He earned other, and he got a coveted spot at, I'm sorry to tell you, it's a competitor.
Don't say their name. Just
I'm not going to say it.
not Chase again.
A
Right? No.
financial institution
Okay, that's good.
that could one day be somebody like Citizens. And
Thank you.
he started in an apprenticeship. He excelled there. And now he's a cybersecurity analyst. He's earning 3 times what he was earning before he came to Scholas. So I think there is tremendous potential through this kind of collaboration to achieve those kinds of changes in the workforce here in Essex County.
Thank you, Caitlyn. I enjoy sitting next to you. You have the stats. We're data-focused individuals. As we look at what Year Up has been focused on in our expansion into New Jersey, there are a couple of sectors that we are really looking at, and Citizens is leading the path here in terms of retail banking and financial services, right? But in addition, we're talking about pharma in the medical space here. We're also thinking about what's happening in terms of logistics and supply chain. And those are all areas that we're really focused on in this area, and I think areas of growth, right? I think the other thing that we must focus on, though, is with the diversity of areas of workforce, how are we, again, thinking about the people who are going to do the work, and what are we doing to ensure that we're meeting them where they are to guarantee that they are aware of the breadth of opportunities and how we get them trained in this space?
Well, it's great to hear everybody's doing some of the same training the Urban League is doing around IT. But we also, the grant which we received was really around clean energy, and that's really a growth area. PSE&G received a $1 billion approval from the Board of Public Utilities to expand their green energy program, putting in green infrastructure. And the Urban League is one of their core partners in doing that. And a key piece of that initiative is to reach into urban communities and train people who wouldn't ordinarily have access to green jobs, that access to those jobs. We also have a supply chain program. So we know, like from the pandemic, logistics has increased, IT has increased. And so our training is in those areas around IT. But one of the big areas in this that we see here is in construction. So if you look around Hudson County, Essex County, you see cranes, you see lots of building. And so we have a construction training program which trains people to enter into the construction trades. And one of the interesting features about that is that it's tied in very much to infrastructure building. So who needs construction trainees? The water utilities, the electric utilities, gas, and now what's coming is broadband. So what I want to say is there's a lot of infrastructure money coming down. And what you want to see is that when those funds and those jobs hit our community, that people are prepared to access those jobs. And so that they know what to do when they get on a job site. So our trainees get several industry recognized credentials. And even for our Clean Energy Jobs program, we found that people were afraid, once they got certified, they went and said, well, they were afraid of heights. Or they were afraid of closed-in spaces. So, those are new certifications that we added so that people could really see whether or not they were right for that job before they got the job, right? So, but you find like even if you're afraid of crawl spaces, but you might not be afraid of going on another site where we're doing broadband installations and other things. So part of it, I think, the challenge is to make sure that you have good relationships with employers to understand what their needs are, but you also have a frank conversation with employers as well. So what we've seen is that the criteria that some employers have for their jobs, they've had to rethink them. So every job does not require a college degree. You might have to say, well, you know, that high school graduate really has the potential. And that's really the role of the Urban League. We've been doing that work for over 100 years right here in New Jersey. We're in Essex. We have an Urban League in Hudson County, but you know, certainly I'm in Essex County. But the goal is to, as was said before, meet people where they are, but to build the skills, but to also have that open conversation and dialogue with employers to say, okay, this candidate doesn't meet all these criteria, but all that criteria is not really necessary for this job. And so that's what I think is happening. Some of the shifts with employers are having to rethink you know, some things that they've had. Because I'll say, like when the Urban League was integrating companies, when it was Bell Atlantic, you know, a telephone operator didn't need a high school, only needed a high school diploma. But to get in some of those entry-level customer service jobs, it is requiring college degrees. And so I think those conversations are important to have, and really excited that Citizens has opened its door and opened its dialogue to have those conversations.
Yeah, this is a great position to hear all the wisdom and then I guess to commentate on it, but really good answers. And, you know, I would say one thing about New Jersey that's pretty unique, it has a very diverse economy. So there are tech jobs and we'd like that to be bigger, but it's got a big specialty manufacturing sector. It's a big logistics point with Port Newark and a big tourism state. And so you just kind of look around and say that, you know, there's lots of opportunities to meet demand that's beyond tech, but some other avenues as well. And those are good jobs. So we have a lot of companies in transportation that need truck drivers. We have companies, manufacturers who need welders. And those kind of skills, investing to give people those skills, those are $75,000, $85,000, sometimes $100,000 a year jobs. So it's not just kind of white collar work getting the tech job, but there's real needs. And another point that you made is that you got to look where the money is. So the government is pushing lots of money into the economy and into the states that's dedicated purposeful money around green energy, around building infrastructure. So the needs for skills in those areas is really significant. So as we kind of survey the landscape is to see kind of where that funding lies and what are some of the projects and then what are the skills that are needed to affect those projects. You don't want, the worst thing you can do, we had a conversation earlier with Denise about there's a lot of money that's just sitting there because the state can't gear up to go grab it and put it to work. So I think there's some really significant opportunities around that.
Well, that's a good segue to the next question. And Vivian, always being forward thinking and mentioning rethinking job requirements, it leads to the next question. This question is for you, Bruce, but also invite the other panelists to react to the response. So we're all feeling
You go first.
You have to go first, yes, sir. This time, yep. So no copycat this time. So yeah, well, again, as we've been saying throughout, that we're all feeling the effects of a pretty tight and increasingly tight labor market. Employers have had to rethink some of the requirements of what's necessary for a job. So how are you seeing this play out, I guess, in your case, Bruce, at Citizens Bank?
Yeah, so, you know, I would say another thing Vivian pointed out, I'll go back and borrow on that one a little bit, but just kind of thinking about skills to perform certain roles is kind of taking blinders off to looking at the requirements that we used to have. So if the supply of talent is tight, do people have the characteristics where if we need customer-facing people, that they have good interpersonal skills and they're you know, extroverted and they can have good conversations, be empathetic. then we can put skills to those people so that there's content in those conversations. And Nuno Dos Santos is here, who runs our consumer bank, but that's some of the things that we're thinking about differently, that you don't have to have that four-year college degree to do some of the things that before we used to think you had to do that. I think the other thing that sticks out to me is that to attract your disproportionate share of talent or fill your needs, companies have to have purpose. They have to have a purpose that resonates with folks who can be choosy now and decide where they want to work. And we find increasingly, particularly young people, they want to know that the organization they affiliate with has a really bona fide purpose, and it's something that aligns with their own values. And so talking about, for us, banking as a noble profession, where you can help people during your day job, and you're basically providing advice, helping an individual on life's journey, helping a company navigate its business challenges. We can bring expertise to that. So we're contributing to a strong economy and strong outcomes. But we also have a platform for our volunteerism. So one of the things we're really pleased with last year, even though we were still on the tail end of the pandemic, our volunteer hours were up 36% to 212,000 volunteer hours, which I think is tops among the super regional banks, even though there's banks that are bigger than us in size. So we really have the view that if you're going to work at Citizens, you really need to care not only about delivering great service to your customers and advice to your customers. You want to be there in a supportive environment for the colleagues, but then you really have to make an impact in your communities. And I think that's very attractive for people today, is to say, I'm going to spend most of my waking hours at a job, at work. When does it become more than a job? When is it something that inspires me to get out of bed every day because I'm doing something good with how I'm using my time?
Oh, you get the mic, Stan.
Thanks so much. I'm up. I think the question here is, what do we think about from a nonprofit side in terms of mission, or even on the corporate side, right? Corporate social responsibility, and how are we impacting and influencing, changing the narrative with regards to the necessary qualifications to walk into a job? And so, Bruce, you talked about shifting this, not necessarily focused on a degree, right, or a certification, but the skill. And sometimes that skill is really growth mindset, right? And can we meet people where they are? I've said this before, and then upskill them through the job, right? But in addition to that, we also have to be connected to the communities that we're working in. And Bruce, you also mentioned this at the tail end of your conversation, right? People need to trust in the institution in order to believe that the institution values them and is willing to make the investment. And if we're not deeply rooted within the communities that we're serving, that we want individuals to come from as a part of the workforce, we're going to have a difficult time getting there. And so how are we investing in those communities to ensure that the people believe in the institution and therefore will show up in a way and say, I'm willing to invest my time, my talent, to be able to then contribute to my family. And ultimately, it is a contribution back into the community. So the institution is making the contribution, the individual is making the contribution. We're strengthening across the board.
Fiona, Viv?
I'll just pick up on what, and I think that your focus on purpose, Bruce, makes so much sense. And I think one of the things that I've been thinking about in this kind of ongoing conversation when it comes to degree requirements and how many employers are really taking a closer look at what's on the job listing, right? What's required versus what is a signal of something else. And I think when it comes to specifically that one, right, this question of like, do you have a bachelor's degree or not? This yes, no, really easy filter. I honestly think that it is a slightly, it's a product of a tightening labor market that caused everybody to take a closer look. And I really hope that a changing labor market doesn't change our minds about that, because I actually think it was just a poor signal in many cases. I think what we're really looking for often is a set of skills, competencies, knowledge that we want people to come into a particular role with in hand. And frankly, what we often see is that we exclude people who may be the better candidate, right? This isn't just a question of diversity, of creating a bigger pool. It's actually that you're missing out on talent because you're screening them out of the process based on something that's probably a pretty imperfect signal of what you're looking for. So I think that we collectively, and look, nonprofits are not immune here, right? I think all of us really do need to do this hard work of breaking down what we're looking for in terms of skills and competencies and knowledge, and actually really change the way we hire folks.
I'll just tag on to that too, is that the need for more diversity inside companies is quite significant, and from, I'd say, two dimensions. One is it's the right thing to do. And so from a society standpoint, creating more opportunities and more diversity and inclusiveness is really important. But just from a pure performance-based standpoint, the academic studies and reviews of this would say that companies that are more diverse and have an inclusive culture perform better because they get more points of view into how they decide how to operate and the decisions that they take, which leads to better long-term business success. So that's also an important aspect of this discussion.
I think everyone's made some really great points around working with companies and rethinking what's going on in the labor market and also what talent looks like. So the Urban League's work has been working with those who have been locked out of the job market. And one of those groups I'd like to just highlight a bit is the returning citizens. And, we have the ban the box, but what we've seen sometimes is employers will say they're reentry friendly, but it only comes after a person has been offered a job, and then the job offer gets rescinded when they do the background check and the criminal background check. So in terms of systems changes and what I think also needs to happen in workforce, I think maybe there's the tightening of the job market. I hope to see that it stretches into the returning citizens area, and what do we think about someone actually getting a second chance and really getting companies to say, okay, we're really going to be committed to a second chance.
It's refreshing that returning to office never once came up during their responses. I'm still looking to share my screen here, but so Viv, you have the mic. So this question is for you, and particularly given the scope of what ULIC deals with every day, it's pretty appropriate to have you get going. And then again, I'll let our panelists react. So the opportunity gap, which we talk a lot about, and the access to education and training is an issue we all know that you're very much intimately aware of. How should we think about ensuring that everyone has an opportunity to be a part of the diverse workforce of the future? Sort of continuing this sort of this conversation.
So Whitney M. Young had a quote that it's better to be prepared for an opportunity and not have one than to have an opportunity and be unprepared. So the Urban League's work has largely been about preparing people for the opportunities that are there and on the future. But as we think about the opportunity gap, I think that also challenges our thinking about opportunity isn't equally distributed. So we know from our preschool program that we have children from disadvantaged neighborhoods, when they come into early childhood program, I'm talking about 3 and 4 years old, they already have a 6 million word gap. That gap only expands over time. In elementary school, you see the gaps. And then going to college, those gaps still get there. So I'm going to tell a story, and it's not really about a client, it's about me. I attended an elementary school that was in a pretty poor neighborhood, but then they had busing. And I was bused when I was 12 years old to another school. Now, my elementary school, I graduated as valedictorian. That was me.
Smarty.
I smarty pants. And my whole community said, oh, she's smart. My parents said she's smart. Well, I got bused to a school. So when I'm picking my classes, I picked every honors class there was because I was well prepared. But my first day of school in my new school, I went into the science class and the teacher asked, had a question about the electron configuration. And all the white hands went up. I had never heard of an electronic configuration. I had only seen the water cycle and the planets. I was like, oh my gosh. And that first day of that school, it repeated in class after class after class. That's happening to our children. That gap that existed when I was 12 years old still exists today. And that's the opportunity gap I think we have to really address. That you're not going to have a well-prepared workforce if you don't have a well-prepared children. But then, you know, my parents, as smart as they didn't know that much about school, they said, you just need to work harder. They didn't know about tutoring and supplemental services and all those other things. And the school that I was bused to wasn't providing it to us. You know, it's basically sink or swim. So I think that sink or swim mentality has to be challenged across the board in schools as in companies as well. And so I will say that that opportunity gap, we know that when kids go to college, when young people go to college, that's a big equalizer, that college degree. But Black and brown children, when they're graduating college, they're graduating with enormous debt. They have financial responsibilities for other members of their families. They have this debt. So then you have the long-term implications of that in terms of opportunities that they can't be the buyers, homeowners, because they have college debt. So when they come to Citizens looking for that first-time mortgage, you know, you send them over to the Financial Opportunity Center first, right? So we can help them talk about building assets and long-term wealth. But the opportunity gap, I think it extends certainly into companies. And if you say 22%, the biggest predictor of success for a poor child is if they were born in poverty. That's going to determine a lot about their future. So the opportunity gap is sort of systematically built in. So it's not just about achievement and working hard. Sorry to my parents, you know, it's not just about working harder. It's about their systematic things that are preventing opportunities to be equally distributed. And that's our work. That's collectively the work that all the grantees here are doing, are helping people overcome those systematic barriers to be successful. And I would also say that in terms of companies and diversity, one of the things we have to think about is not the opportunity gap. I'm going to call it the network gap. It's who you know. So a lot of jobs are hidden. They're not on the websites or whatever, you know, they're hidden jobs, and it's who's referred you in. So it's sort of the network hiring that happens that also creates barriers to opportunity. So I think in terms of the companies and promoting diversity, you know, it's also not just the entry-level positions, it's like who's in your C-suite. Right, so a lot of people have advanced, have gone to college. There's more Black and brown people with college degrees than ever before. They're prepared. So these people are prepared for the opportunity that Whitney M. Young was working for. It's really up to the companies to make sure they have the environments to recognize that talent, promote that talent, and give that opportunity within the company, not just the opportunity to get in the door.
I would hate to follow there, but you.
Thank you, Vivian. No, nailed it. And
Yeah,
yes,
that's
please.
right, yeah.
And I think you covered a couple of areas, right? And one is systems change, right? And how are we working to ensure that there is systems change to knock out degree requirements for entry-level roles that don't need them, right? There's systems change in terms of the work that we're doing to impact economic justice and economic mobility, right? And to address the needs of individuals who have committed themselves to a course of study, that they've spent the money on a college degree, and connecting them to a living wage role so that they can afford to pay back a loan or buy their first home and things of that nature, right? I think it's also incumbent upon us, and Career Connect Washington puts out this really great graphic, right? And they talk about career-connected pathways, where they say that, again, the question becomes awareness at the very beginning. Are we talking to young people? Are we talking to children about opportunities? Are we allowing them to dream, right? And then thinking about the many pathways they have, right? Are we preparing them properly? If they're showing up, whether it's a certificate program, they're going to college, it's an apprenticeship, how are they prepared for the roles that are coming? And then how do we launch them beyond the entry-level role, right? Because it's an entry-level role. We don't expect you to stay in that role. So what are the skills that we're teaching when you're at the job to ensure that you're ready for the next role? How are we connecting you to the network to ensure that you're talking to the right individuals, that you have a mentor, that there's a manager there who's willing to speak your name in places that you are not in, right? To promote you into the next role. Those are the places that we need to be working in order to address some of these issues.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that strikes me as I think about this panel and even many of the others in the room is honestly the unique role that nonprofits play in this ecosystem, both in terms of addressing those structural gaps, right? And it's something I cringe about because it's a bit of a Band-Aid, right? And we know that. But it's also because we recognize the real difference between equality and equity, right? Recognize that what one person who's 20 years old needs to propel their career forward is going to be really different than another 20-year-old based on that kind of preparation that they had. I came to Scholas about 6 years ago, and I think one of the things that amazed me the first time I sat in one of our classrooms and talked to our learners who were maybe, 8 weeks in, was that I had never had an educational experience like this. I had never had a cohort of peers that I was this close with, this connected with. I'd never seen what it was like to do something, entirely immerse yourself, right? To full-time integrating technical skills and communication skills and working together as a team and wrapped around with supports from financial coaches to learner support managers to ensure that problems could really be addressed. And I realized that what we've designed and what so many of our organizations have designed is really a function of understanding what communities and individuals need to thrive, right? And it's not going to be the same cookie cutter that those kids who already knew whatever the electrical cycle is, and I hope you can tell us at the end, Vivian, what the answer is. But I think there's tremendous value in really in listening to communities and trying to design educational pathways, career pathways that really speak to where people are, what they need, and where they're trying to go.
I'm going to pass. I think it's really hard to build on Vivian's answer. It was a very powerful answer, so I'll leave it there.
So we got through about 4 of the 8 questions, just given how robust the responses are. So we're going to jump to the last question of this particular segment and then allow you folks to offer any particular thoughts or questions you might have. And Caitlyn, since you have the mic, you will get us going. And this again for the full panel. So now that we're, it's almost April, unbelievable, right? So end of the first quarter. So we're a few months into 2023. So what do you see as the sort of vulnerabilities to be worried about over the next year? And I want to go into 2024. I can certainly talk about the next year or two. But more optimistically, as we talked about at the beginning of the discussion today, we want to keep within this sort of solutions frame. What do you see as growth areas to be excited about?
Great. I think, going back to what you said, Bruce, one of the unique facets in New Jersey really is the diversity of industry. And there's a lot of growth, right? From clean energy to life sciences to financial services. There are real opportunities that are happening today, even in this somewhat skittish environment. And I think we all have reason to be concerned, right? Interest rates remain high. It does look like unemployment is low, but it's a little worrisome how many people have not returned to the labor market after the pandemic. So I think that there is reason for optimism and growth in New Jersey. I think, going back to what Vivian said about the network gap, I think that there's really 2 key places that we all all collectively need to dial in. And one is around skills. And this is why, we're so grateful for the investment that Citizens making with Scholas. We are offering stackable credentials to our alums to help them on their career journey while they are in the workforce. So they're night and weekend classes, they're self-paced, asynchronous, but supported. They are helping people on career journeys they've already identified get industry recognized credentials that their employer today can appreciate, relate to, and understand. And if that employer doesn't, they can go to the next one who can clearly see the value of that credential. I think the other piece really is that network. One of the things that we understand, every person in this room, I'm confident understands, is the tremendous value of the social capital that we all are able to use to create pathways for your own career and for others. And I think that as we look at this next year, and particularly in times of uncertainty, right, where there are layoffs, where there are people who are making career changes that they didn't necessarily want to make, it's that much more incumbent upon every person in this room to think about how your own network can help create those connections and help folks move forward.
I think we have to talk about sourcing partners in this space, right? And we're sitting here at Hudson County Community College, and so the impact and really the opportunity and growth areas for our educational institutions, right? Because that is a pathway to careers. It's not the only one, but it is a pathway. We have an obligation in this space to make sure that the narrative that, go to college to get a good job, right? Like, we don't fall short on that because so many people turn to education in times of economic crisis, right? People go back to school, they reskill in that space. But the reality of it is that the data is suggesting that even at the bachelor's degree level, 100 students enter in freshman year, 63 are going to graduate. 42 go out and get jobs in their first year, but only 18 are living wage jobs. We've got 50% of bachelor's degree recipients living below the financial sustainability threshold, right? 40% that are underemployed. When we talk about the community college, out of 100 freshmen in an associate's of applied science degree program, 42 withdraw. Why? What's going on? What's happening with the awareness and the preparation there to make sure that those individuals can persist? 53 go on to higher education, but only 5 enter the workforce, and 1 living wage. 1 out of 100, 1%. So our commitment, right, if we're saying that it's a pathway, is to make sure that it's a viable pathway. And that's where the partnership opportunities come in to ensure that from the market-based side, we're helping to influence curriculum training, but that there are opportunities for internships, for apprenticeships, that we're looking not just at the prestigious 4-year institutions, right, but our access institutions, right, that are serving our low-income first-generation students to get them into the workforce. There's tremendous opportunity, but again, going back to one of the original points, we have to meet people where they are. And there's so many individuals that are accessing education and career-connected pathways through the community college. So how are we working together collectively to ensure that we're fulfilling that promise? If we're going to say it's a pathway, we have to make sure that it truly is one.
Well said. Well, I'm at the Urban League, so I got to talk about social justice. In the last question, one of the things I'm thinking about is the George Floyd effect and what impact that's going to have on workforce and everything. Because we know that even in terms of companies, they might have had a diversity officer, but those people are getting laid off, even at that level. So at a senior level within companies, if they're backing away from diversity, I guess the concern I have is what does that mean for the workforce? And, so that's the concern I have going forward. But I'll say that the Urban League's been doing the work for 100 years to help people advance and prepare economically for the future. And that means sometimes it's uncertain. But you step out on faith and you keep doing the work. So we changed our model during the pandemic. Many of us went virtual to provide direct service in a virtual environment. In 2008, when it was the financial crisis, we opened our home ownership foreclosure center to deal with the foreclosure crisis. So I guess I'm always optimistic, and I'm thinking about, the possibilities. But I do have concerns about what's happening and some of the signals we see now in terms of companies backing away from diversity. So that is a concern that we're looking at. And certainly I mentioned before about inflation and, the Fed tightening interest rates. I understand you want to keep a hold of inflation, but that generally tends to not portend well for Black and brown workers.
Okay, well.
Sorry, but you can follow that.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to follow you because that's a little bit Debbie Downer. So I'm gonna try to pick people back up to end. Okay, so yeah, for once I won't follow you, but yeah, I think there are concerns in the short run just about the Fed is raising rates to try to corral inflation, and that could raise the unemployment rate somewhat. So we'll fight through that. I think that's something that hopefully is relatively short-lived and not severe. But what I would say is where I do want to assuage some of your concerns is that I think companies are all in on the DEI commitments, and we made certain promises in the wake of that at Citizens in terms of investments with community partners. We gave out a bunch of $10,000 small business grants to principally minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses, and we're continuing to do that all the way up to present. So it wasn't just all right, we got to come up with a response. It's something that we said, we need systemic change, and we have to really be on the ground, working with partners, trying to instigate that change and make it lasting. So I think companies really are committed there, and we're publishing our goals externally in our annual reports, which puts more pressure to follow through. So I think more companies are in that camp than the ones that you're concerned about in general. The other thing that I think is lasting and positive change is kind of the tightness in the labor market. I think will continue for a while, for kind of the medium term. So if I look out 3 to 5 years, that's going to be present. And even though you mentioned that AI is going to potentially automate a bunch of jobs, I think that's kind of farther out in the future. I don't think that's a present threat. So I think what companies started in this labor tightness period in terms of looking to non-traditional sources of labor and the need for upskilling and kind of focusing less on credentials and more on skills. I think there's a sea change in that's going to be persistent. So I think the work that we're doing here is going to have a tailwind that continues at least through the medium term. So really important that we get after this. The last thing I think there's a real opportunity is for companies like us who are trying to impact the communities and have a bunch of partners, trying to connect our partners in each market with a common view about how we can work collectively together more cohesively is a real opportunity, because some of the folks that are here in the room haven't worked with each other, but we're giving them grants. So wouldn't it be great if we could have a follow-up meeting and just, what are you doing and what are you doing and how can we work together to make a 2 + 2 = 5 effect? So I think that's also a big opportunity.
The only thing I would add, and Sandy is going to be our mic deliverer, mic sharer.
Runner.
Mic runner, okay, I'm sorry. For anyone who might have a question or a thought. So we got a couple hands already. I would only add real quickly, if I can, as to, in terms of what excites me and what I think is lasting, is the work of the nonprofit sector. And if you look at the 4 organizations that are represented here today, you just see the diversity of the sort of work, the diversity of the scope of what we do, the types of jobs that we offer. I think if we were to ask, I don't know, 100 college kids, and my wife works at a state college, she's been there for almost 30 years, she talks about this all the time, that you can take your banking or your financial services, your economics degree, and work for a nonprofit. Probably of those 100 students, 99 will probably say, what? What are you talking about? And from a LISC standpoint, we hire underwriters, we hire loan officers, we hire folks with banking backgrounds, right? Folks with financial backgrounds can work for any of the three organizations here, providing financial services, financial management work. So what excites me is the growth, the proliferation of the nonprofit sector, and it's so evident today that the nonprofit sector is needed in bad times and in good. So that's really evident today. So why don't we start with our first question? Here we go.
Thank you. I'm Jessica McKenzie from Panasonic. And so we share the pillar of workforce readiness and development, and it's a new area of work for us. And so for citizens and for the nonprofit partners here today, I wanted to know more about some of the internal strategies companies you may work with or your company have taken to bridge kind of the gaps internally between, let's say, for example, talent acquisition, to all get them on board to make an impact as it relates to workforce. Like, are there any special programs you're offering? Have you noticed any special programs or adjustments your partners are making as it relates to the application process that's really been effective for you?
Great question. So who wants to?
So, well, I start with the partnership that we're funded for, which is our clean energy program. When we first started working with PSE&G, the goal was to access these jobs for, disadvantaged members and communities. But all the job descriptions might have said you had to have 2 to 3 years experience in clean energy. And we were like, well, that's not going to happen, right? So I think you've got to start with common values and goals of what you're trying to achieve. So when you're working with an employer partner, you're clear on what they need, we're clear on that, and then we start negotiating, right? So I think part of it is our role as nonprofits is to do that negotiation on behalf of the clients that we serve, right? And then to also show our employer partners we're listening to what they say their needs are, so the candidates that we source to them, they are ready. So then that creates a pathway for the next candidate behind them. So in terms of the companies, I'd say, and Panasonic is a partner of the Urban League, and we have a board member there. So just really having receptivity and having an open conversation, pull out your jobs at different levels and bring them to the table. And let's start talking about what sort of candidates you need, and we can find them for you. So they're in our communities. If we have the opportunity to be a sourcing for you, we can do that.
I think we focused on making sure that we're convening our partners, particularly on advisory boards, to impact some of the training that we do on the inside, but also how do we get managers to the table to understand how we're working with opportunity youth and what it means to actually mentor, support, to manage those individuals. Europe also has an advisory arm called Grads of Life that actually puts out a training specifically on opportunity youth management, right? Recruiting, retention, in order to ensure that, again, if we're saying that we are focused on economic justice and economic mobility, that it's not a revolving door of somebody getting into an organization and then not being prepared or not having upward mobility and then going right out.
Yeah, I would say I've actually seen a lot of innovation in the last few years when it comes to creating new talent development programs. I think we see employers across the country thinking more creatively about apprenticeships, either registered or kind of self-created apprenticeships that really intentionally create a new rung on the ladder, right? That create an entry-level role that you expect some amount of education and support that's a little bit more intensive, but the payoff is an incredibly loyal employee who is likely to stay there for a long time after they transition into the full-time role. I think one of the other ways that Scholas works with partners is that we actually design customized training, and often we'll work sometimes with talent, but often it's actually with those technical divisions that frankly are feeling the pain the most for roles that they're having trouble filling, and can help work with our curriculum development team to identify what are the specific skill sets, right? What are the programming languages I'm using today? What are my DevOps? And so that we can design a curriculum that will offer up a slate of diverse candidates that have really specifically the skill sets that a particular company is looking for. And I think that's been one of the ways that we've seen companies get pretty creative with the way that they're sourcing and create a pool that they're much more likely to want to pick a lot of candidates out of.
For the corporate response, I have the advantage of being able to call a friend. So our Chief Human Resources Officer, who's one of the best in banking, who's designed a great people program at Citizens, will take my response here.
Answer, I guess. I mean, I agree with everything that you all are saying. I mean, we've invested a lot of time and effort in the partnerships and ensuring that, you know, we are sourcing talent from a lot of different pipelines, but it really does start with a lot of the internal work that we have done. And I love your collective comments around the focus on skills, right? It's no longer about, you know, the jobs. It's about, you know, what are the skills and capabilities that you have? And, you know, that has caused us to really relook at all of the roles that we have in the company and really look at what are the skills and capabilities people need and really kind of deconstruct the jobs and then challenge, quite frankly, our systems and our programs and our policies. Do we need college degrees? And many of our jobs we don't. And we've taken that requirement out. You know, we're also creating, and Bruce mentioned academies. Particularly, we've had quite a bit of success on the tech front where we take people in who have some of the, you know, they may not have all the skills, they've got a good chunk of the skills, but then we put them through, you know, like a 3-week boot camp, which is a combination of classroom experience as well as on-the-job experience as well, so that they, you know, come into the organization and they get accelerated out. And we do the same thing for existing colleagues. But it's a skills games now. And part of what we're also building is a platform and a technology platform that we call the Talent Marketplace, which really gives us an opportunity to better understand what are the skills and capabilities that are resident within the organization today. And the grand vision is to expand that to people outside the organization so that we really, so as things come up, needs come up, projects, roles, gig work, we can kind of look to see who has those skills and who has those capabilities. So it's not the usual suspects.
I think we have time for at least one other question.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ferlanda Nixon. I'm the Chief of Policy and External Affairs with the African American Chamber of Commerce of New Jersey. Wanted to let everyone know this Saturday we're having a career fair right here in Hudson County from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. down the road at another institution of higher learning. All industries will be represented, and it's free for job seekers, and it's free for employers. We have a few more slots for employers. We're offering free headshots, free haircuts, work readiness workshops, and registration for voter registration. So my question is, so with all of that, this is our first one. I had to think very quickly on how to squeeze that in and ask my question. But my question is related to it because this is our first one that we're doing, and we're going to be doing them throughout the entire state. So with all of that we're offering free for the employers and the job seekers, is there anything else that we can do to make that event even more impactful?
I'll throw one on there because we've seen it work in other cases. One of the things you might want to consider is a pool of volunteers from an amazing place like Citizens that could actually help people with rapid resume review. I think one of the things that we see, it's so critically important that resume has to look exactly right, that first conversation, otherwise they're not really going to be taken seriously.
Yep, good idea. Any other thoughts? Go, Stanley.
Yeah, I think we have far too often been siloed in our approach to the work that we're doing. And so you're probably already doing this, but since you announced it, I would continue to offer and push that we're talking to each other to make sure that we're showing up to support the event, right? Not just with volunteers, right? But staff, that we invite young people that we are affiliated with to ensure that you have a robust turnout. right? But that we're continuing to build the bridges in terms of working together because that bridge programming is going to be necessary, right? Like there are limited resources that we all have, but our collaborative work can really make that difference, right? So I'm glad that we've connected and we're going to make sure that we show up at the educational institution down the road.
Oh, great. So I have I want to thank Sandy and your team. She's been phenomenal. Just let me just do that in terms of, and she and Michelle, I know Michelle for a long time, but they really have strong connections with the community. And so just want to recognize them for all the work they did to pull this together. But, you know, my COO and is in the back of the room. Patricia Sermon, stand up. So what should they do with their job fair? I don't, she's asking for some suggestions for the job fair. You're closer to it than I am.
And have some staff attend the job fair. That's if we can get one of the slots, because you indicated it was a couple. But since you gave me the mic, I'm going to talk. But they real quick. But I'm glad you mentioned about the partnership, because I see some faces. I see Wendy from La Casa and a number of other people. We still work a little bit too much in these silos. And we have participants that need some of the services you provide and vice versa. And so I'm hoping that we can expand that and get people ready for the tech jobs, because there are a lot of people don't know what the tech job requires, what's the pathway, and there's too many people to provide services to. There's no reason why we can't share and work together to meet those demands.
I think that's a good way to wrap it up. It is 12 noon. Look, our panelists are going to stick around for a little while, so make sure you can connect with them directly. I think Rebecca said at the very beginning, connection and collaboration were among the two top agenda items for today's convening. I think we accomplished that. I think we also accomplished, I learned a long time ago, to never stop learning to learn, right? And I think we learned a lot today. I know I learned a lot today. So one big round of applause for our panelists here today. So with that, we'll wrap up the program. I don't think the goodies are going anywhere. So if you want to get yourself a treat, some coffee, and network. All right, good. Thank you.